Our Father, we pause to pray for the children, the young people, the ministry that accompanies these little minds, the young hearts, that you would continue to sustain our efforts, not only to promote the truth, but to live it out in front of the little ones so that their anchors might remain firm and steady. And for those of us, adults here in the sanctuary, we pray that you would grant us, Lord, an usual reception and perception of what is true about us, our condition, and your desire for us to get what is most precious. And what is most precious is for us to discover and rediscover over and over again that our deepest joys are never found in anything else, anyone else, but in Christ alone. And so it is our prayer that you steady our hearts and our minds today, that you would help your servant articulate clearly, but with power, so that, O Lord, nothing more and nothing less, but your will might be exposed and obeyed today. In Jesus' name, amen. Turn with me to Genesis chapter 11. And it's Babel or blessing. One of the more, if not one of the most influential bands. Not even in my era, but still gaining traction in this day and age. The Beatles. And the personality John Lennon was so mysteriously attractive. One day he penned these words: imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell before us, above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say, I'm a dreamer. I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. I was intending to sing that, but I will surely fail John Lennon, and so I decided just to speak it. It's a popular song, Imagine, by John Lennon. I was looking at the lyrics and I thought to myself, my goodness, that is surely an interesting fast forward of something that I read from Genesis. A bunch of people imagining a different kind of existence where there is no God, where they will live as one, imagining utopian existence that's possible without God. So it's actually not Lenin philosophy. I think it's distinctly human to sway towards a direction in thinking that life without God is not only possible, but it is the most fascinating to imagine. And so Babel or blessing, but before we go there, I'd like to invite you to some difficulty here, just to get this out of the way. If you read Genesis 11, and Romel read it a while ago, that the entire world had one language, chapter 11, verse 1. And they had one speech, so one world, global. One language and one speech. So that was once upon a time. Now there seems to be a biblical problem because that's chapter 11. But in chapter 10 there is some kind of a disconnect by the way this happened right, after the flood. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. There's always this question. So if there are 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and there were no human beings left except the 3, where did the Filipinos come from? Good question, right? Shem, or the Americans, where did they come from? The Koreans, the Japanese. The Shemites, Shem, the Jews, it's gotta be Shem. Ham, or the Hamites. So we track of history, those are any people group that had ites, Canaanites, Jebusites. They are the people that kind of like very tough and rugged. And so that leaves us to one strong option. We are from Japheth, the Gentiles. And interestingly so, while this is being played out in the Table of Nations in chapter 10, we are told, and so these are the sons of Japheth. And so that's verse 2, verse 3, and then verse 4. But in verse 5 of chapter 10, there is some kind of a problem here. In chapter 10, verse 5, because it says, from this maritime people spread out into their territories by their clans, within their nations, each with its own language. What is that? And that's chapter 10. Seems to be a problem here, because in chapter 11, we are told that the entire nation had only one speech and one language. But then in chapter 10, here we are being told that the nations began spreading, each with their own language. And this is one of those things where you have skeptics, those who do not believe the word of God, scratching their heads and saying, you see, this is one of those contradictory things that cannot just happen. That's the reason why the Bible cannot be trusted, because of these contradictions. Well, that can only happen if you're not seriously into the Bible, because you're losing something important, context. Especially in the book of Genesis, the way the book of Genesis is written is a form that you have to pay close attention to how it's written. You see, Moses, the author, had a very unusual style. It's kind of like what we find here today in cinematography. You're watching a film, and it's currently happening. And then suddenly there is a throwback. The film blurs and it throws you back. And it says, 25 years earlier. And it brings you back. Oh. So that was what happened before this thing happened. So what's happening here is Moses is not playing a trick here. Chapter 10 tells us that, the nations begin to disperse with various languages. But before that happened, something happened. It's kind of like what happened in Genesis chapter 1. Remember? The entire creation story was given in a comprehensive form. In first day, second day, third day. And then in chapter 2, there was a throwback. And we see in very detailed form how man and woman were crafted in details. You see, that's the throwback. So there is a consistency in the manner by which the writer is providing a literary device. You get that? I just want to get that out of the way, so that you won't be confused, because you might be reading Genesis and say, what in the world? How did this happen? So we go to Genesis 11. This is what happened. Why there was suddenly a dispersal of human beings, and suddenly there's this many languages and many cultures. How in the world did that happen? Before we even start, I'd like to throw back a little bit more. In Genesis 9, there is this simple command from God right after the flood. So God wiped off the entire human being except for Noah and the family. And when the flood finally settled and gone, and new humanity was given the go signal to flourish, they were given one simple command. And that's in Genesis 9 to 7. Now, listen if this is not too simple. Then God said to Noah and his sons, I now establish something. As for you, be fruitful and increase in number, multiply on the earth and increase upon it. Now tell me that's not simple. God is saying now that you're just you, Noah and your 3 sons and your families, this is my simple command. Be fruitful, increase in number, multiply on the earth, scatter on the earth, and increase upon it, populate it. As simple as that. Let's see if the tribe of Noah obeyed. Babel, or blessing. So, turn back to Genesis chapter 11 and let's start the story. Now, the whole world had one language. So that's the original. And they had a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar. And, I'd like for you to pay attention to this Hebrew word, they settled there. The word settle in Hebrew is the exact opposite of moving forward and multiplying and dispersing. That is a total contradiction of the command of God. What these people did is they declared, again, independence from the command of God. They moved eastward and they found a good spot. Shinar, Babel, by the way, it's actually Babylon. The most famous man there, Nimrod, as the great-great-grandfather of the Babylonians. And they declared independence by saying, forget about that command, but this plain here, it's good. And let's not pitch our tents. Let us build homes. Because we're not going to be transients, we're going to settle here. You see that independence? Now, doesn't that sound familiar when God tells you something and you go against what God's trying to tell you? You declare independence. They said to each other, come. This is funny because you can almost see the comical temporariness of what they're trying to do. Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they use bricks instead of stone and tar for mortar. See, already the author is setting us up to understand that whatever they're trying to accomplish, it's funny, but it's not going to last. And so it moves on. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves. Pay attention to this. Let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. So what was the plan? They found Shinar, and they gathered among themselves, and they said, forget about that commandment. We are settling here in Shinar. By the way, we'll build a city. And this city, you know how ancient cities are, they're walled and fortified. The emphasis is on exclusivity. This is our city. And the doors are locked. Emphasis on that. Isolation. Not spreading, but inward exclusivity. Not only are we going to build a village with walls, but we are going to erect a ziggurat, a tower that reaches to the heavens, because of the delusion that if you have a tower that reaches to the heavens, you can connect to the gods. They're ignoring Yahweh here, and they're maintaining the delusion that they can become their own gods. And so if you are historically keen and you are into archaeology, you would have discovered the ziggurats and how they were built. They were built with a delusional architectural prototype. It's kind of like a stairway to heaven. And the upper part is painted like clouds and blue, as though they can reach the heavens. I was looking at this, and I was again fast forwarding from Genesis 11, and this is too familiar. Aren't we obsessed in this day and age with narratives of our time where people build cities and towers that reach to the heavens, and we look at human accomplishments like the tallest tower in Dubai, and we look at what we've accomplished. This almost reaches heavens. And we send people to the moon, and we brag about it, and we say, look, no one can stop us now. We're going to Mars. And you look at the motivation behind this, and it seems like what's happening today is a replica of what just happened in Genesis 11. And more often than not, it is the building of ethnocentric status symbols that this is our city. We don't need God. Well, whenever things of that sort happen, rest assured, point number 2, please. Something happens. It's going to be an inspection. Because you know, there is a creator. There's a sovereign God that oversees everything. He just doesn't build and then he leaves what he builds. He doesn't merely create. He creates and then he's sovereign. He looks after it by inspecting it. So we look at the inspection. The Lord came down, in verse 5, to look at the city and the tower that the people were building. And the Lord said, by the way, this is interesting. It's been very interesting. Did you see the literary, did you catch the literary device here? The people declared, this is our city, and we will build a tower that will reach the heavens. A very interesting literary device. The author said that the Lord had to come down from heaven, come down, in order to look at the city. It's kind of like, my goodness, these people are building a city with a tower. Where in the world is that? Where's that city with a tower? Oh my goodness, there it is. Oh my goodness. And what the men here on planet Earth, Shinar, were saying, this is our city! It's almost touching heaven, and God couldn't even see it. It's kind of like, Dubai, and kind of like our expertise of trying to reach Mars and everything. We are so arrogantly proud about human accomplishments, and God looks at heaven and says, my goodness, these people of mine, when will they ever get it? And so he comes down and inspects it, and this is what happens. The Lord declares, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be possible for them. And then he gathers the heavenly council. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand its other. So if you think that human language, people, 6,500 human languages exist today. Babel, right? There's even an app. It's called Babel. 6,500 languages exist today. If you're wondering where the languages came from and you think that's cultural innovation, no. It's consequence of human pride. And it's actually as a result of number 3. Give me number 3, please. Intervention. God had to intervene because God won't put up with global, united belittling of God. And so in order to stop the insanity of human beings, again conniving and establishing a world order that declares him to be non-existent, he confuses them. He breaks them into various people groups with different languages, and suddenly humanity is confused, and suddenly we look at each other with questions and suspicions, and the US suddenly looking at Russia and they say, are you kidding me? And North Koreans playing their games, and Japanese fortifying their naval fleet because they're suspicious. And do you think that the Filipinos are accepted from this? There is this wild ethnocentrism that my nation is better than yours and I'm suspicious of you. And we cannot even come to terms because we are so divided, not only in language but in everything that we do. It has never faded. And so, when some nation develops a nuclear powerhouse, there is a race to equal and surpass them. And so when France wins the World Cup, France declares, "Allez les Bleus!" You think the Filipinos are going to be outwitted? The following day, there is a headline. The goalkeeper of France is Filipino. Yeah, he's got Filipino parents. Both of them. But he was born in France. The Filipinos won't be outwitted. Because the Philippines is the greatest nation on earth. You're giggling, but deep down, Wherever you go, you carry that flag. And you say, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. But that's not Filipino. It's every nation. And you think we're making it up. No. It is a consequence of Genesis 11. And if you think it's just punishment, well, you can say that. That's part one. God will not and cannot tolerate such aggressive disconnect. But He intervenes on a positive note. Because He's about to showcase something. Yes, there are 6,500 different languages, and there are divergent nations that are so wide apart they don't understand each other. They're suspicious of each other. So, why, God? Why are you allowing this? Well, one, it's preventing a global alliance a movement that would provide an edict and a delusion that there is no God. But also, do not forget, people, that something is happening to those 6,500 languages, even as I speak. Every single week, a new translation of the Gospel of Jesus is happening. So that the Gospel of Jesus is now translated in Hiligaynon. The Gospel of Jesus is translated in Kapampangan. The Gospel of Jesus is translated in Mandarin. The Gospel of Jesus is translated in Italian. The Gospel of Jesus is translated in Swahili. The Gospel of Jesus is translated in Thailand. The Gospel of Jesus is named even an unreached people group, and work is currently being done to redeem that people group. And God is okay saying, watch me. You think 6,500 dialects, I can conquer that? Watch me. I will raise a people who understand me, and they will translate my word so that redemption can take place. And watch me, God is saying. You think these nations are scattered? Watch me, God is saying. Because my Son just granted a commission to those who are His. Go now and make disciples of all people groups, teaching them everything that I taught you, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And my promise is this: I will be with you even unto the end of the age, so that not one people group will be left untouched. Because, fast forward, I am building my own city, not your puny little cities there. And fast forward, and I'm with excitement, my goodness, I remember, in the book of Revelation, there is actually a discussion on what that holy city is and how it looks like. So I cross-referenced, and I looked at Revelation 21, and here it goes. In verse 22, it goes, I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives its light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations, oh my goodness, the nations that are dispersed, the nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and honor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Choose, God is saying. Are you into John Lennon's Imagine? Are you on a grand delusion that there is no God? Choose! you are going to choose my son. Because if my son redeems you, you will march with your nations, and you will live with me forever. 6,500 languages, many nations that are yet to be reached. What is that to me? God is saying, watch me do this. And in the book of Revelation, it's over, people. You know what I love about sports? Watching it when it's over. When I know the results. When I see the ending, and I know that my team won, I get my popcorn and I kind of feel like, oh my goodness, that was a bad shot. But wait, I can't wait for the last 2 minutes and how they rebounded and how they turn this thing around. Because it seems like Christianity is losing. It seems. Come on. So where do we go with this? The Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. Of course, they would have to. They're confused. That's why it's called Babel. By the way, that's the name Babylon. Because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth, and that's where we are right now. I have very simple PowerPoints here, application points. The first one being, are you functioning independently from the body of Christ? Are you declaring independence? Cooperation is a curious phenomenon of cells in the human body. Each cell is flooded with communication about the rest of the body. This is very interesting because in conversations with medical people, they know this for a fact, that if you split my chest open, you get a few cells from my heart, and then you put them in a dish and you watch them in a sophisticated microscope, you'll find something that's mysteriously fascinating. You will find that my little cells taken from my heart, it's mysteriously bubbling, but they would be in perfect unison, a perfect beat pattern. All of them. If you take 100, if you take 200, if you take 500, if you take of those cells and put them in a dish, the beat is perfect. And you wonder, where in the world, why in the world are they beating the same? Because they're used to loyalty to the head. The DNA encrypts it. And that's only the heart. What's happening is to the cellular level, and the analogy holds, it is this. If this is the head, every part of my body is able to function because every cell member connects to the head and it obeys without any contradiction. That's the wonder of the human anatomy, and that's the reason why cooperation is non-negotiable in my own body and in my being as a created person before God. I must yield perfectly to the one who created me. In church, this holds too. There is no aspect of church that should disconnect from the head. And that's the reason why we emphasize here at the Biblical Community Church that cooperation is crime. BBS just had a wonderful thing. And it's just amazing how the body demonstrated the fluidity of that cooperation. But lest they forget that BBS is not an entity in itself. I immediately reminded the leaders be sure that there's follow-up at the BBS, because if I remember correctly, you said that half of those who attended the Vacation Bible School, the children's BBS, were not from here. And they're still looking perhaps for a Bible-believing church. You need to know that we have to connect those whom God has given to this church. There is a purpose why they came here. And there's a reason why the children have experienced God. There is a connection. Everything connects. And so there is not a singular cell that can live apart. And you know, if we're going to look at this, there is a dreaded disease in the human body. It's a lipoma. Where have you seen a deformity of a person who seems to be perfectly fine, a little bit thinning, but it has an extension of some flesh, a morbid extension of a flesh, a fat cell like this. It's called the lipoma. It's not malignant, but it grows. You know? And you know what's happening? That just started from a single fat cell. A lazy single fat cell that does nothing but suck the nutrients. That's it. Stores it. Loves to be deposited, but never withdraws anything. Doesn't want to participate in anything. But in the build-up of that myoma extension, until the entire body gets sucked out. It's very important and crucial in our understanding that in whatever we do, not only in our personal lives, even in church, that everything that we do, we should ask the question, am I functioning independently from the body of Christ? Because am I functioning independently from the body of Christ, this is dangerous. More dangerous, however, is the cancer cell, because the cancer cell is more aggressive than the lipoma. A cancer cell doesn't care whatever intrusion. They not only kind of like expand a deformity, but the cancer cells, the malignant ones, they kill the healthy ones. They spread out all sorts of news and all sorts of divisive things. That's why many churches today die. You know why? Not because of outsiders, because of insiders who have turned into cancer cells, where they don't like one thing, and they spread unusual reports, and before you know it, it spreads like gangrene, and it kills the momentum of churches. Are you functioning independently from the body of Christ? Because there is at stake. As a lipoma and a cancerous existence in the body of Christ, are you that person? That stems from Babel. By the way, you and I should never say that I'm exempted from that, or you'll be lying. It's deep, embedded in our spiritual DNA. We should be on guard. The second one is this. Are you existing without the boundaries of discipleship? Because we mentioned that God will inspect. The Lord searches every heart and understands every motive behind every thoughts. In Revelation 2:23, we are told on a corporate level, all the churches will know that I am He who searches the hearts and the minds of the people. So how are you going to be inspected? Some of you are thinking mystic and saying, ha! No such thing, how will God inspect me? I don't see him. You know what? He gave you the church. You know how you get inspected? So that you'll be safe. If you are within the boundaries of discipleship, if you are in the middle of an arrangement, if someone is pouring his life to you, towards you, and then you are encouraged to pour your life to another person, you're in the middle. We call that midlife. You know what happens when that happens? You're inside a safe place. It's called the boundary of God. If you are currently just without sustained joy, if you are currently just having a hard time with direction, the prognosis seems no-brainer. Ask yourself this question: are you in the middle of another person pouring his or her life to you? And are you actually pouring yourself to another person? If you do not have that, please enter in this week, right now. Because without boundaries, that's Babel. That's Babel existence. The moment you get in the middle, life happens. There is flourishing in the middle. Go therefore and isolate yourselves. No. Go therefore and be sure to be in the middle. That's what Jesus said. Be sure to introduce the midlife. That the only way to live life is this, that you're in the middle. Courageously invite people into your lives. And courageously believe that the work of the Spirit is not only functional, but it's potent. My goodness, how can I do this? I don't know discipleship. My goodness, don't have any models. And how am I going to mentor another guy? Don't worry about that. That's not your problem. The Holy Spirit's going to aid you and help you, and be surprised that it flows like that. Just make yourself available. Are you existing without the boundaries of discipleship? Another problem with boundaries is, Pastor, I have discipleships. I have actually 5 disciplers. I know people have 5 disciplers, but they're the worst. I look at them and they're the most problematic, and I go, what in the world? You said you have 5 disciplers, and why are you the most, kind of like, the most unusual form of Christianity, because you claim that you're being discipled, but what's happening with your life? And then I get to realize that the discipleship is pseudo-discipleship. You know what pseudo-discipleship? You are in the discipleship, but you are not giving it your real you. You're saying all kinds of lies. You're not telling your discipler who you are and what your problems are. And so you're just kind of flowing. You're kind of like, ooh, it's good to know that they think I'm being discipled. My goodness. We are very good liars. We can put up fronts and we can deceive our disciplers, and they think everything is fine with us. No. Discipleship is hardcore, people. If you want to grow with discipleship, come on. Stay on. This is hardcore. This is the only way to live well. Last thing. Are you willing to surrender to the will of God? I think that's easy. I think that's easy to say, search me, O God, and know my heart. If there's any way in me that's not right before you, I'm ready. I'm ready to leave my tower, and I'm ready to live the fortress of my city. I'm going to leave Babel today. Just expose me. Are you really willing to do that? Or are you like this? Lord, you know I'm a Christian, but please, you know, I have made concessions. But this part of myself, please don't touch it. You can't touch that. You know, that's private property. That's mine. It's not going to work. That's Babel. It's either dependence, full dependence and complete dependence upon God. Will you declare independence, even if it's only 5%? You're telling God, you can touch my 5%. That's independence from God. And that may be the reason why there is no joy. God is opening up a wild opportunity for all of us today, beginning today, because here's the wonderful opportunity. He wants for you to step down from Babel today, whatever your Babel is. And God is saying, guess what? Step down. Step out. Come to me. I know you're tired and weary. But stop defining your life. Receive my favor. Everything about your life, I know. And I will inform you what you need to do. And your joy will be made complete. I want to ask the helpers in the community, because I'm going to ask for a sacred time of silence. And I'd like for you to spend this time just between you and your God. And you ask this question, Lord, am I building my own tower? Lord, am I in isolation? Am I living outside the body of Christ? Lord, is there joy in my life where there's lack of it more than there is the presence? I don't want any voice to speak to me, but yours, oh my God. Spirit of the living God, speak to me. And would you grant me the boldness to step down, step out, and enter in, do your rest by coming to you, O Christ. There is a way out and a step down from Babel. And the way out is a person. His name is Jesus, the Son of God who takes away the sins of rebellion, the Son of God who takes away the sins of the world. He died on the cross of Calvary 2,000 years ago for you, so that for such a time like this, you can look at yourself and say, I cannot live without you. And so, dear Jesus, come into my life and be my Lord and Savior. Or, dear Lord, I have failed. I have been a believer for quite a time, but I have been building a wrong tower. I've been building my own city. And now you've called my attention. It's clear. My lack of joy. I surrender. I ask for your forgiveness. I'm stepping down. Destroy my tower. Destroy my city. I'm going outside. I'm going towards your city, my God. And thank you for the gift of the church and the gift of the availability of the saints imperfect as they are, I know you will use them to mentor me, and I to mentor them. And Father, I have a language of my own, and I do not understand those around me at times. But there is hope, because in your word you declared, soon and very soon, these various languages will march in the gates of the city of God, and there will be praise forever. That is the only city that I long for. And Father, as I partake of the symbols of the body and blood of Jesus, it is a guarantee, a complete guarantee that what you have spoken will come to pass. Just as you said that there is going to be a flood, there was a flood. Just as you said that the world will never be destroyed by a flood again, it will not be destroyed by a flood again. Just as you said that the earth will be destroyed by a fire, it will be destroyed by a fire. Just as you said that there will be a new earth and a new heaven, it will happen. Just as you said that the nations will march in the city of God, and I will be one of them, it will surely happen. That will only happen because of what Jesus did on the cross of Calvary. As I partake of this, the symbols of the body and the blood of my Redeemer, I am saying, have thine own way. Yes. Oh God, in my life now, have thine own way. Will you please distribute the elements?